we need to build what I call a money machine, something outside of you that one isn't dependent on your efforts to create cash flow so it can support your life. People will call it passive income. I don't like the term passive because
I don't either.
I call it leveraged income. In other words, it takes less input from you for the output from it. The day you have your money working harder for you than you did for it is the day you're going to start to hit financial freedom. And the freedom isn't in the business. The freedom is in the money machine.
Hey, Mel, welcome to Keep What You Earn. So happy to have you on.
Oh, thank you for having me, Shannon. This is going to be fun.
It is. I always have fellow CPAs on, but you're a whole different flavor of CPA, and I'm really excited about it because Mel, we were just chatting before the interview, and you guys are in for a treat because I feel like Mel and I kind of sync up on a lot of things that, contrarian CPAs, if you will.
Yeah.
And I love it. So just, Mel, say hi to everyone and introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, I'm a CPA also. I think my son thinks it stands for cheapest person around. At least that's what he tells me. But I had a non-traditional path because I had this entrepreneurial bug planted in me, and I knew that I wanted to do things my way. I went to the big firm, but then I left, and because I look at entrepreneurship as helping people build dreams and solve problems and to improve the human condition, and to me, that's certainly better than tick and tying and tax returns, and so that's where I kind of went, and I haven't really looked back. I mean, I still do some work that you would coin as a CPA, but primarily focusing with thought leaders and entrepreneurs to help them build their business, help them to build their wealth, help them to create the path to financial freedom without sucking the life out of themselves.
Yeah, that's the key part.
Yeah,
that is absolutely the key part. So just to reiterate, how did you become an accountant? Because I love this question because I did it because I lost a bet with my dad. These are the types of things that nobody becomes an accountant on purpose.
You're still paying the bet.
I know. Well, he won the bet and then I won. It's a debate who won the bet, but but can you tell us how did you end up on the path of a CPA? Because it's not easy. You got to be pretty dedicated to pass that exam and go through all we got to go through.
You do, and can you imagine it happened by accident? I mean, I was the oldest kid, and I've got a young. I say he's younger. I've got an identical twin brother that's 3 minutes younger than me, and I have a younger sister, and so parents, they wanted me to be a doctor. Come from a Jewish family. They wanted me to be a doctor. I thought, okay, I'll go to school to be a doctor. And so I go to college with the intent to be a doctor. And in the first semester, as I'm kind of thinking this through, I go, I don't like the sight of blood. How am I going to do med school and all of this? So I decide, well, maybe instead of a doctor, I'll be a dentist doctor. And I could do that and it won't be as bad. And so I'm still going to school. And then I realized, have you seen people's mouths? I don't want my hands in their mouths. And so someone literally, I'm talking to someone, said, go get a business degree. Accounting is always good. And I go, all right. I had no idea what was accounting. I never took an accounting class in high school. I had no idea. So I enroll in the business school. And before I know it, I'm 3-4 years into my education going, I guess I better take the CPA exam because that's what accountant majors do. And so I took the CPA exam my last year of school. I passed it before I graduated, and I went to one of the big firms in downtown Los Angeles, which was a whole nother story of how they introduced me to audit there. So one of the tasks you have to do to get your CPA license in California is you have to inventory something. And typically, if you're doing an inventory, it's on New Year's Day. So you got to kiss your New Year's Eve goodbye because you got to be up early so you can count, widgets on a shelf. Well, I got out of that. I started at the company in August of that year. So it was 103 degrees here in Los Angeles. And they sent me out to an inventory of a company by the name of Bandini. I had no idea what Bandini was. So here's this young guy out of college. I put my 3-piece suit on, show up to this company that I find out manufactures fertilizer. So there I am, 3-piece suit, galoshes up to the thighs, in mounds of steaming manure. And I thought, yeah, audit's not for me.
that is the perfect visual of audit though. Like literally up to your knees in shit in a suit. And I'm like, that is the greatest like metaphor.
Oh my God. Is
You
that
lived
not
it
true?
literally, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's true. It really is true. And we don't want to shit on audit as a profession. I'm very grateful for every day I spent in that profession, but oh, it's the butt of so many of my jokes now. Oh my gosh. So I love that you started your career there. Now, what was the shift? Like, was there an aha? Was there anything that kind of made you go like to get the entrepreneurial bug? Like, was it always there, or did you feel like it kind of evolved
No,
through your
so it
experience?
actually got planted in me at age 11.
Mm,
So I was sitting at 10 and a half years old, watching a movie with my dad with Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis. And it was one of the original movies about Harry Houdini's life. And I'm watching this movie about this guy that like boxes couldn't hold, chains couldn't hold. And I'm looking at it and I go, this is cool. So I start researching, I start reading, and I get books. And it started a love of magic. And so what happened during the summers, I used to take they called it rapid transit district. It's a bus. I took a bus across the valley to the magic shop during summer months because I wasn't doing anything. And I would spend the days at the magic shop learning magic and understanding. And one guy, he comes in and he's talking to the owner about he's got a gig this weekend and this and that. And like when he leaves, I'm 11 years old at this point, and I go, what's a gig? Okay. Clearly it was well before computers, so it wasn't a
yeah,
gigabyte. And he says,
yeah.
oh, and he's doing a show and he gets paid for the show and all that. I go, wait. I could do this and get paid? And he said, yeah.
Oh,
So like I went home, I designed a 20-minute magic show. I figured it all out, the act, and I decided I was going to do it for kids' birthday parties as a clown. Which was a great idea at first, but you got to know your audience. Most kids are scared of clowns, but
uh, oh man. Did you have a name? Did you have like a clown name?
oh my God, I still have the business card. It was Mr. Mystical the Clown. Uh,
Oh my God. All right, Googling that as soon as we're done. If only, oh my God, Mel, if only we had social media back then. If only someone could dig that up on you.
oh
Like,
my God. I still have so my mom made the clown outfit.
uh-huh.
I still have that clown outfit. It doesn't fit me anymore, but it fits my wife.
Oh my
She
God,
doesn't
that's
wear it,
so
but I did
funny.
have her put it on once. It said, it fits you. So
My gosh.
from 11 years old. But the thing it lit a fire under me because I said, wait a second. I have the ability to do something. Now I was getting paid $50. We're talking 1972, so it was a while ago.
Hmm.
$50 to do a half-hour show.
That's huge.
It was
For a kid
huge.
today, that's huge. For a kid today, that's huge.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. So I'm sitting back going, I just got paid to do something I love, having fun, and changing, not necessarily changing people's lives, but affecting their mood and affecting their state. And I go, this is cool. And I think that's what planted the seed in me to sit back and say, as an entrepreneur, it's important for us to realize that the true product is to improve the human condition. Whether it's a
Yeah.
smile, whether it's taking away pain, whatever it is to improve the human condition. And the byproduct of that is profits.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think that I carried that whole thing with me. I also had some good mentors. When I was in college, I worked for a entrepreneurial CPA that kept saying, do it on your own, do it on your own. After you get the training, the education, the experience, go on your own. But I think that the seed was planted back at 11 years old.
That's so cool. I love that. I absolutely love that because you got to feel what it's like to not have to sacrifice anything
Yeah.
to get something.
Yeah.
That is so cool. So, what do you think when it comes to entrepreneurs? What do you think holds most people back from discovering their own potential, their own wealth and abundance, right? Because they may be trading time for money, they may be in the burnout, in the grind. What do you think gets in the way of those folks to feel that, to feel like they're not sacrificing and they can actually do what they love, make the money they want?
This, this at the risk of sounding harsh, and I'll
Go for it.
yeah, I, we are our worst enemy.
Yeah.
And right next to that is social media and media. As a child, if you ask a child, what do you want to do when you grow up? They don't tell you one thing. They give you a list of things, of what's possible. They dream big. They envision big. And then system, society, whatever you want to call it, starts to strip that away. And I just finished a big promotion and everything. And just some of the conversations that I have with people, especially in the current economic times that maybe we're entering into and all that stuff, is this willingness to be okay with my current state. And I think that holds us back. And let me be clear. I'm not saying not to be content with where you're at, but to believe in something bigger, to be driven by something more, not in the sense of acquiring and achieving, but impact, and living a richer existence versus settling for something else. And no matter how far away it is, no matter how large it might be, to let go of the dreams, I think is a sad state. And I think that we are willing to settle because we hear the uncertainty around us, and we've had some indications of failures or setbacks, and you just kind of resolve yourself and say, I'm okay. I guess this is my lot in life. And I think that's not the way we should be looking at things. I think that if you have the dream, you keep the dream alive. And even we only get 70 to 80% towards that dream, the joy actually is I was in alignment with the path to my dream. I was on the journey, and not necessarily, because it truly isn't the destination. I enjoy, just like you, I enjoy what I do.
Right.
And the joy is in the doing of it. And sometimes we lose sight of that.
Yeah, I think so. Someone shared a metaphor with me that like it's climbing a mountain and getting to a certain part that's flat, right? And looking down and saying one of two things. Look how far I've come. I can stop. Or look how far I've come. That's going to be easier because I've done that. Like look how far I've come. That means I can keep going. Like looking at your achievements as momentum and not as cool, I've done that, check, and settling for, okay, I've done what I set out to do. I feel like people aren't setting their sights high enough and aren't taking immediate action to get there. They're just settling for, well, I tried, but because they tried once, or, they'll just keep consuming information thinking that's going to get them to the next level, as opposed to, you do have to kind of hustle. You do have to really try hard. You have to work hard to get there.
Well, I totally agree. I wonder, if we lived with a little bit of curiosity, a little more curiosity in the sense of,
yeah,
what would happen if I tried? I just, almost like a puppy dog's kind of way of looking at things. Let's do it for fun, just to see what would happen. So many people think that, well, I'm afraid to make a bad decision or a wrong decision, so they don't make a decision, which really is a decision in and of itself. But very seldom are you going to make a decision that's terminal, that you can't come back from. And if you make your decisions right, you have alternatives. Look, I'll tell you a story so it'll put context so you know about this. But I've been doing presenting for a while. I've been speaking for many, many, many years. But I all of a sudden get involved with a event for an organization that happened to give me the Lifetime Achievement Award. Okay, so that just means two things. One, it's their way of saying you're old. It's time to hang it up, and it's and that they're just looking at it from that perspective. But that also means that everyone knows me. But this is the first time I'm doing an event that is me doing the talent speaking and doing the tech at the same time. Okay. Now, mind you, bunch of accountants, actuaries, financial planners. So conservative audience, it's in the morning. It's about 8 a.m. I'm going to do this thing. I roll out of bed to go do this webinar. So it's just me and my slides on GoToWebinar. And I'm in my Superman pajama bottoms, no shirt. I get in, I plug in, I put the headphones on. I start this webinar with 250 people on the webinar. And as I start going, I look at the chat and I see someone say, Mel's naked. He's not wearing a shirt. And somehow I turned the webcam on. Wasn't supposed to be on. And there I was in front of this organization, completely shirtless.
Oh my gosh.
And you know what? Post-it notes never were more valuable than that moment to get it on that webcam, because I couldn't figure out how to turn the camera off. And I slapped and I just kind of kept going and going, maybe they didn't notice. But and the others, and the reason I tell you, look, so at the end of this, I actually did a pitch. So I sold $30,000 worth of work off of that, which might mean forget marketing, just do it topless. I don't know, but you probably are going, this show just went a whole different direction. But
yeah,
but I think that here's the thing. I am keynoting for this organization. This was many years ago, but I am keynoting their conference. I did it in August, and they're bringing me back in December to go keynote. And my point is that, y'all, if I can survive that,
yeah,
there's very little that you're going to do that's terminal, except to give up on your dreams.
I totally agree. My that wasn't definitely not at that degree, not that magnitude, but I tried to host an event and nobody showed up. 10 people registered, nobody came. I brought breakfast. I went to this location. I had people who were hosting. I brought materials. I rolled in with like a luggage cart thing, like a luggage bag, and I was all excited and enthusiastic, and I had to like walk of shame out of there and say sorry, like, yeah, guess no one's coming, and just go home. And then I went home and had breakfast with my husband, and he's like, how come you're home so early? I was like, no one came. And so here's what's funny is I immediately went into this state of, that was the worst thing that could have happened. And the worst thing that happened is I went home and had breakfast. Like that, like if you can operate from that place of, the worst thing that happened is I went home and had breakfast. If this had never been a thing, if I never even hosted this event, that's what I would have done anyway. So why not go do the thing? Because the worst thing is you end up back where you would have been anyway.
Yeah.
So when your worst case scenario is is if you did nothing, then what are you waiting for? That like, it really clicked at that point where I said, I just lived the worst case scenario of what could have happened with that event. And I cannot wait to do the next one because I survived that. And there's no way, if it happens again, it will not bother me. And I'm like, that's great feedback, right? But it won't happen again because now I know what to do. You know, that's the whole thing, is the curiosity, but also the willingness of trial and error. Because there's like the immediate feedback of it didn't work once doesn't mean that you're not good at it, or doesn't mean that you can't be better at it. My husband's learning Spanish currently, and I'm like, you don't learn it by watching 3 videos and trying and going, I'm not good at this, I guess I shouldn't do this. You know, that's not how it works. You have to keep getting back up and trying, and you have to have that constant curiosity. And I think it's really the what's the word for it? Like the endurance of it that is what matters for entrepreneurship. The consistent curiosity. Like, I'm going to be curious despite the outcome.
Too often, especially with social media and people parading their supposed perfect lives. And if you looked on the inside, look, our friend, okay, Chris Harder.
Yeah.
So my wife and I have brunch with him, and now they're the reason that we have our sheepadoodle.
Oh yeah. Bananas.
And so we have our little Budo who's got the same dad as their bananas, and bananas name is apropos for bananas. Okay. And so we're sitting at brunch and I go, dude, how is it that you've got bananas so well behaved? And he goes, oh, he's nowhere close to well behaved. Those just happen to be the moments that we can capture on film. And so it's like it validated that the messiness that we have with Budo sometimes is the same that he has. But if you look at the social media, it looks like this dog is great sitting in the front seat. And so I think that we get caught up in the same thing where we're comparing someone's chapter 12 to our chapter 1. And that we think that it should be so perfectly orchestrated, and it's not. And it's actually not supposed to be.
Yeah. And it's the part of the, like, I think that part of building trust, part of having an online presence should be sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, I'm not actually an advocate of sharing everything, because I think it just gets excessive, where it's like, just live your life and don't post it, right? Yeah. There's a little bit of a balance, but I think that when you're, it's not just about like adding the filters and showing all the highlight reel. I mean, show it, but with context, right? Like,
yes.
If Chris posted Banana sitting in the front seat of the van, for example, and he was like, this never happens. I feel like I would get it, but I feel like I always see him. You're right. I always see Banana so well behaved on social. I'm sure if I met him, I'd be like, oh my God, this dog is a hot mess. But that's everyone's dog. I'm like, that's what I expect though, out of a sheepadoodle.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so true. Mel, what do you think? You mentioned, like building a business, and we were talking about wealth building before we dove into the episode, and I want to dive into that for a second about building wealth and the misconception around what wealth is, what it isn't, because people are talking about it like a hot topic now. Business owners online are like, I'm building wealth with my business, or you were mentioning like, building wealth and defining your business and wealth similarly. Yeah. Can you just unpack that for us and just share what you've heard and your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to realize is I actually don't think that wealth is the goal, because wealth to me is a statistic. It's just a number. It's a bank account, commas, decimal points. What the goal is richness, an enriched life. And that's about the experience, how we experience it, how we feel it. And to the extent that the wealth allows us to enrich others' lives, it enriches ours. Now it matters. But if we're just doing a number, it's just a scoreboard, it doesn't matter. But I think for entrepreneurs especially, is that we often mistake and believe that our business is our wealth. And it can't be. It can be, but it shouldn't be. Because as much as your business is one of the most powerful wealth building tools you have, at the same time, if you see it as your wealth, it is also the single point of failure. It's the one place that if we are putting all those eggs in one basket and we can't do something for whatever reason, pandemic, legislation, health issues, now what? And so it's a struggle for entrepreneurs, because they say, well, if I go and invest in other things, I can get a better return on my investment by investing in my business. I get more profits and this and that. But you're only looking at one side of the equation. One side of the equation is the return. The other side is the risk. And if I'm putting everything into a single income stream without building something outside of it, yes, you're getting higher returns, but it's because you're putting so much risk. And I think we need to be careful of the fact that our business was never meant to be the wealth, but to be the creator of wealth. It's there to create a solution, to have an impact, and to provide a cash flow. Beyond that, we need to build what I call a money machine, something outside of you that one isn't dependent on your efforts to create cash flow so it can support your life. People will call it passive income. I don't like the term passive because
I don't either.
I call it leveraged income. In other words, it takes less input from you for the output from it. The day you have your money working harder for you than you did for it is the day you're going to start to hit financial freedom. And the freedom isn't in the business. The freedom is in the money machine.
I love that. And it's I call it income from cash flowing assets, which is much longer, but it basically cash flow from your assets as opposed to your effort. And that's what I want is, and Chris actually preaches this in his masterminds, which I totally agree with, which is you should be, pulling from the crop, but the crop is, you're growing your business. I think it's like planting a seed. He's like, don't pluck it too soon because it will spread seeds.
Yeah.
But you're harvesting before it can spread its seeds. And that's the whole thing, is like you're using your business's money for things that are not investments, for expenses.
Yeah.
And then, but what you should do is use that to buy things that have cash flow and so on and so on. I've never seen anyone build wealth with a fleeting income stream, right? It's always from something where there's a steady flow of cash coming in from, but it's boring stuff, Mel. You make income. The most money you make is going to be the most boring way possible.
Here's the interesting thing. One, it doesn't take a lot of income to build a lot of wealth. And people think it does. There's a study out there, 10,000 millionaires, that the majority of them built their $1 million, their millionaire status, on a salary of $100,000 or less. Okay?
Easily. I know you can, because I think we hit a $1 million net worth before, I'm pretty sure I would have hit it with my salary, no problem, because of what you do with that money.
Exactly. And we think income is the key, and it's not. It is a key, but it's actually not the most important key. The two most important keys is time and savings rate.
Oh yeah. How much you pour in and how long you wait.
Yep. And so many people think about, well, and especially talking with I'm 61 now, so I can call them youngsters. So especially talking with them youngsters, you look at it and it's really easy for us to think that we have time. But if you look at the what I call the wealth creation curve, there's this segment of that curve that I call the wealth flat line. And everyone has to pass through that wealth flat line. The mistake that most people make is they want to wait to start the path on the wealth flat line, which makes it harder, or they start and stop. I started, I don't see much. It's not getting me ahead, so I stopped. Well, it's because you're in the middle of the wealth flat line. It's flat. There's a reason you call it a flat line. But what happens is that when you get past that flat line and the money starts to get momentum, you get into the acceleration zone. Now wealth starts to build on top of wealth. And all of a sudden you'll wake up in 10, 15, 20 years and go, how did that number get so big? But we don't have the patience these days, or the ability or the discipline to stay in the game.
Yeah. And we also get, I think there's there's an attention thing in terms of paying attention to something for long periods of time and leaving it alone. We get so caught up in the headlines. We get so caught up in emotional activity with our money, like putting money in, taking money out when certain things happen. And it's like, just stay the course and leave it there. Trust the process. And there's something about wealth building too that I really believe in. And that's, again, that it's the most boring ways to make money. They say, well, what if I put it into, index funds and ETFs, and I put it into something that's just a safe vehicle, that I somehow have an opportunity cost of doing that because I'm not investing it in these other things that could make me money right now. And I go, yeah, it is a risk and return thing, but you have to balance that. I think that if you go all in on high risk, we'll buckle up. But you have to balance it. You have to know where you're at in terms of risk levels. And nobody's talking about that. People are just like going in for the sexy stuff like crypto and NFTs and investments online. And I'm like, that's all well and fun, but I treat that as casino money. I will put that in.
We're the same on that.
I will take the same amount of money that I would go to Foxwoods with, and I will put that in an NFT and be like, I can't wait to learn more about this and play with it. But I am completely okay with calling this tuition and saying, this is what I'm going to do to learn. But I'll tell you, the money I care about is in index funds, ETFs, and target funds in a 401k, mostly, along with real estate, a little bit of real estate, and, a mix of different things. But the whole idea is, here's the thing though, I'm aware of where all my money is. That's the other thing.
Oh, it's huge.
I know where all my money is.
Yeah.
And that's what I wish for everyone is, like, don't sleep on handing your money or the control of your money over to someone and trusting that they're going to take care of it. Oh, I give it to a wealth manager. It's fine. Well, where is it? Like, what are they doing with it? I have no idea. That scares me. It scares me to not know what's going on. But for a lot of people, they just,
You,
hand it
you
off.
can't, but we are so in alignment on this stuff. You
Hmm.
cannot abdicate or relinquish the control of your financial future to, I don't care how many licenses they have, to any
Hmm.
advisor. I'm sorry. And look, to the extent I'm a CPA, I'm an advisor, but I'm not in that financial advisory space. And some of them, they don't like some of the things I say, but they are not the captain of your ship. They are the navigator. They are the deckhand. They are the people to your right and left that will help you understand. And they have to take the time to educate you. And if they choose not to, they don't deserve your business. They have to earn the right to have your money so they can guide you, and not the other way around. It's not a gift that you're giving them money. You don't hand your financial future of your children, your missions, your movements, your grandchildren, your legacy to someone and say, okay, it's good. That's what happens. And you end up in a situation like I did in a Ponzi scheme, or you end up in a situation like people did with Bernie Madoff. You cannot do that as much as you sit back and want to say, well, I'm not a numbers person. Well, your financial freedom's on the other side of that math equation, and it's just basic math. And so
Hmm.
when the why around your financial freedom becomes large enough, you'll become a numbers person enough. You're not going to be at the level that like Shannon is. You're not going to be at the level like I am, because we live and breathe this every day. But at least, can you tell whether the patient is alive or not?
Right. And to use the health analogy again, you don't go to your doctor and say, I'm not really a food person. Or like, I'm not really an exercise person. I don't care. You have a body.
Yeah,
You have
yeah,
to take care of it. You have a responsibility to take care of the body that you live in. You have a responsibility to take care of the financial container that you live in and your financial future. It's so fun because you actually had a very serious diagnosis too. So I know this resonates because it's like you didn't get your diagnosis and say, well, I'm not really a health person. Like that is not right. But is that not exactly what they're saying? And
it is.
that's what's funny to me is that I'm like, you cannot be a numbers person. I get it. Like I'm also not I don't understand a lot of stuff with my health. I used to be a fitness professional. I worked in fitness for 10 years, but that's why my analogies always work with them. But it's if you struggle with your weight and stuff like that, it can be really tough. And like okay, I was not immersed in this subject when I was younger. I do need to learn more about this, but it doesn't, again, with this fixed mindset, it doesn't mean I'm not a numbers person. That is not an identity.
Yeah,
That is not
yeah.
an
It's not.
identity. It's like you have to just be open to
It's
taking
a
control of what you can.
it's a learnable skill. At one
It
point, we didn't
is.
know how to walk. At one point, we couldn't tie our shoes. At one point, we got the
Hmm.
food all over ourselves. Sometimes we still do. Okay,
Yeah. We got
but
potty trained, all these things like
yeah,
that. They were not like, I'm not really a toilet person. Can you
I
imagine?
mean,
No,
oh, God forbid.
no, God forbid, God forbid. But you know what I mean? Like that's the thing is I get that in adulthood, we don't, we're not as moldable. We're not
Yeah,
wet clay anymore that can be molded as easily, but there's still potential to understand the fundamentals so that you can be in control.
yeah.
Because I mean, so I know that I've heard the story, and I'm going to direct people to the whole story. But can you just give us a synopsis, Mel, of the Ponzi scheme situation? Because I think that's really powerful.
So I got involved in an investment. This was 2005. I met a guy through a friend who was involved with this investment. You know,
Hmm.
I go to his mansion on the top of the Malibu cliffs. He's got 4 kids. It looks, so I give him money, and I ignored my rules. I ignored my conscience. It didn't feel right, but I thought, he's promising me 21% every 8 weeks. And
Gotta be doing something right. Look how he's living, right?
yeah. And he showed me the websites and the things that he's doing and all that stuff. Well, here's the mistake a lot of us will make. And I hate to say that I think you're going to see more of this happening as uncertainty unfolds in the economy. So beware. And I actually did on my show a
Yes.
specific episode about the 10 emotional and psychological triggers of scammers, examining this in detail because I wanted to see how did I get taken. I'm a financial dude. I'm a financial
Yeah.
person. I
We
shouldn't have
expect
gotten taken.
ourselves to be like, I should have
Yeah.
known better. What went
Yes.
wrong? Yeah.
But he stroked the aspiration, the inspiration, the emotions of me, where I literally did a spreadsheet because I'm an accountant. Well, if I did 20% every 8 weeks, this amount of money, literally in 6 months, I am bigger than GDP. I am doing really good. So like all of a sudden it took hold, and I put aside, when your emotions go up, your financial intellect goes down. I put my smarts down. I put my conscience down. I put that little voice down. I put my rules down, and I bet. And I lost. And I lost big when it turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. Between me and 3 friends, we lost over $4.5 million. I lost 1/3 of everything I owned.
Oh, man.
Because of an hour of stupid.
That's all it takes.
It's all it takes. Now, since it cost me over $1 million, I looked at it and I said, I just paid for 3 Harvard PhDs. So I better learn something from this. I recovered within 18 months. Mm-hmm. But what came out of that, and I think that we've all made some bad financial decisions, and it's not that we made them, it's if we continue to live in them. So what came out of that is a lot of what I teach today, but it's my investing rules. I am dogmatic. It is black and white. I don't care if I leave $1 billion on the table. Nope. If it violates a rule, I'm out. Okay. And it just changed everything from that perspective. But because if I did not learn something and then teach it to others, then I was doomed to repeat it.
And other people are doomed to fall victim to it as well. So, because if you can, this is the other thing, if a CPA can fall victim to this, someone who is savvy, someone who is aware, then anyone can.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like, we're not immune. Mel and I are not immune from emotional reactions to things. This happens all the time. I've made several spending mistakes in my business that have cost me thousands, tens of thousands. And am I proud of it? No. But did I walk away going, well, that was a really good lesson? Yeah. Did I do it again? No. And do I ask better questions as a result? Absolutely. Yeah. I think all of our experiences, if they don't change how you approach the next experience, then that's the whole value of it is, thank God I learned that.
Well, here's the other thing, going back to decisions. I think that the real reason we make a decision is not to set a direction, but rather to get better information to make the next decision, which is the same thing with the experiences. We ain't going to get it right the first time. I certainly didn't, and I still don't. I'm 11 and a half years married. My wife surely points out some of the flaws. Happily married, just so we're clear. But same. I mean, the point being is that we're human. But I have conversations with some folks, and they're beating themselves up because I should have, and look at where I'm at. We didn't do this, but that doesn't serve you. Take responsibility, just like I did with the Ponzi scheme. I had to take responsibility if I was going to move. But what I didn't have to do is take blame. So take responsibility without taking the blame for wherever you're at, because now you can have the power to move from there and say, what did I learn? What do I need to learn differently? Who do I need to guide me? What are the next choices to make? But if I'm living in blame, I won't move.
And I'll add to that with, don't blame anyone.
Yeah.
Don't blame anyone, because you also could live with resentment and blame for the person. And I know you know exactly who that is, because I think you said he just got out of jail.
Just got out of jail. Yeah.
He just got out of jail.
Supposed to make restitution, but I haven't seen a check. He spent 9.5, 10 years in jail. So
yeah. And I think that you could have spent the last 9.5, 10 years, living with the energy, living with that little, a little bit of a bruise there. And you could have said, I blame this person. It's their fault. I am XYZ. But that's also a choice not to assign any blame,
Yeah.
especially to yourself.
Yeah. So one of the other guys, the friends that was in it, it was the original guy in it. He spiraled into resentment, bitterness. He destroyed his marriage. He destroyed his business, and he destroyed his liver by drinking. We're talking 05, 06. He's just coming out of it now. Just started a new business. He's got a new wife. He's finally coming out of it. But that blame, that bitterness will eat you up. And the loss of the money is far less than the loss of the quality of life during that time for him.
Totally. I mean, it's almost like he was imprisoned equally.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So Mel, I got one more question for you. What do you think that most business owners assume about money that isn't true? Or had learned?
Yeah, I think one that it matters. Now, let me explain this. Money matters only to the extent that it increases the quality of your life. If money is the only thing that we are chasing, we're missing out. The very first principle I teach is why versus how and how much. How do I make $1 million is the wrong question. Why is the right question. Because too often we're focused on profitability only. We're focused on building a bank account, our income streams. How many times have I heard people say, I had a $4 million launch? Yeah, but when you look at it, they ended up netting zero. It doesn't matter. And at the same time, if your quality of life, your relationships, your health, and all that stuff is suffering, it's a mistake. And you mentioned that I had a bad diagnosis in 2019, diagnosed with cancer. I'm not a candidate. I didn't have the risk factors, not a smoker, not a drinker, none of that. They found a tumor in my bladder. That turned out to be 7.5 centimeters. But here's the thing, that woke me up to things that I knew, things that I was living by, but actually elevated them to a higher level of importance, realizing that everyone has been given a certain number of slices of life. That's it. As much as you've been told, hey, you only have a limited time here, we never took it seriously. I didn't until I had to stare mortality. And so then the question really wasn't, how much money did I have in the bank? How much income do I have? Except to the extent of how that gave me the flexibility to get the doctors, do the things that I wanted to do, which really isn't about the money. Rather, it's about the quality of life. And I think that when we separate the money from the quality of life, we will suffer in the long term. And that, I think, is the mistake that many of us, entrepreneurs and others, can make. And we can rationalize the heck out of it as to, I got to pay bills, I got to do that. And I get that. And if we are living a bad quality of life, if our relationship with our children, relationship with our spouse is struggling and suffering, the relationship with our health, all of that is declining, and the only thing that's working is the money, I think that you'll come to those, that when you stare mortality in the face and start to realize, oof, I had it wrong. That's coming from someone that stared mortality in the face and started to look at life and say, I was blessed with a great financial life, but my appreciation for it went way up, because not only was I blessed with a great financial life, I was blessed with a great appreciation of life that I wasn't appreciating at the level I should have. The gratitude, the people that I was sharing it with, the experiences that I got to do to travel around the world and all that. Now I know that when I say yes to something, I'm giving that slice of life away and I can't get it back. And so the only time I'm going to say yes to something is if I know that I can give it everything. So I can say with good conscience that was well spent. and I expect the same in return from the people on the other side.
I absolutely love that. Is this where a lot of the passion comes from in what you teach in terms of your experiences and your, look at mortality, as you put it? What makes you so passionate about teaching this to other people?
I think there's two things that make me passionate about teaching it. Is that piece of it is that and coming from a financial person to sit back and say, I mean, our colleagues in the accountant space saying, he's not talking about profits first. What do you mean? It's blasphemy to the accountants that we're saying, no, profit's the byproduct of living a richer life and doing the right things. But I think there's that piece of it. But really what started to drive me was during the cancer, I had to fight it medically. I went through 3 surgeries, 4 tumors, 47 treatments. I am 2.5 years clear and clean. But I had to fight it medically, physically, psychologically, spiritually, energetically, doctors, teams of doctors, all of that. But I didn't have to fight it financially. And on the heels of the diagnosis, 2019 into 2020, I saw the pandemic. And I watched so many people struggle financially with the pandemic, not because they needed to, but because they didn't make choices and behaviors or understand how to deal with money differently. I did, not with the intent of surviving cancer, but I found that I could. And so as I struggled to figure out, we were talking about blame. When I got diagnosed, one of the things that I started to look at was, how come I got cancer? What did I do? What did I do to deserve this? I started to look for something I did in my past to blame. And it wasn't until I looked at it and said, well, wait. I can't find anything, because it was the dark place to be. But when I looked at it and said, what if the cancer, the meaning, the reason for the cancer isn't behind me, but rather it's in front of me? What if the cancer is actually valuable? What if the cancer is the catalyst that gets me to sit back and say, wait, I didn't need to struggle financially to get through it, and I could pick my doctors and do what I need to do to heal. It's time to teach that message to others. So if it's not cancer or a pandemic, it's just life, that something happens and you're okay and you live with the peace of mind and the richness of life that you are entitled to, because I truly believe financial freedom is a birthright. But we as a society are told not to talk about it. We don't have these conversations. But if we realize that what we're really talking about is life, maybe we'd have the conversations more openly. And I think that's really what's driving me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's part of what drives me as well. This whole platform is just sharing more of that we don't get enough of in what is being fed to us by every resource. So I really appreciate putting out more content that neutralizes and more content that really drives these points home, Mel. I really appreciate you coming on the show and spending your time with me.
Oh my God, Shannon, it's so much fun to find someone, a kindred spirit, which sees the world
Yes.
a little bit the same as me, which now allows me to go justify it to my wife and say, I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
No, you're not. There are plenty of us, and I found a lot of them. We're hiding in the shadows, but we're here, the weird accountants. And thank you all for listening. Thanks to 2 CPAs who just want to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
But I know our audience got a ton of value. Mel, where can they hear more from you?
So I'm on the internet, Mel Abraham 9 on Instagram. I don't know the first 8, but we'll hunt them down. Then my website, melabraham.com, I've got a bunch of stuff there. I'm putting out regular content. My show is the Affluent Entrepreneur Show. And I love hearing from people. It's a safe, sane place to have conversations around things that society doesn't want to have conversations around. Money and wealth and living a richer life, so we can have an impact and leave an indelible positive impact on the world. So
I love that. Make sure you're following his podcast. Make sure you are following Mel on Instagram and getting more of this content in your ear more often. Mel, thank you again so much for jumping on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Shannon. It was a blessing to me.